tip your servers or they will become life coaches. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hate Spinnerbait, the podcast where we hate spinnerbait, but we love service industry workers.
Hells yeah.
I'm Michael Ann, and joined with me, as always, is Bethany. Hi, Bethany.
Hello,
how's it going?
Everyone. It's going really great, and I would just like to reiterate, please tip your servers, respect your servers. Remember that they are mere mortals like yourselves.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be a ranty episode. I can tell you that.
Prepare. The two of us have worked in food and beverage for many a year. So we have some stories, we have some thoughts, we have some feelings. So pretty much for the next few episodes of Keeping the Moon, everyone just mentally prepare yourself for that.
Yes.
Also, hi. Yeah, we're reading Keeping the Moon. I think most of you know that by now because we prepped you on that. But yeah, Keeping the Moon. Here we are, book 3, baby. Last book of the 90s. It's 1999. We're all freaking out about Y2K. We're all requesting NSYNC and Britney and Backstreet Boys on TRL, the worldwide premiere. Duel of the Fates has dropped on TRL, and it's a good time to be alive. Phantom Menace is coming out. It wasn't great, but Darth Maul is really cool.
Yeah, you've hit some of my 1999 trivia facts I had.
Oh, I've already spoiled some of that. I was just gonna say, hit us with a beautiful 1999 trivia, but I just dropped some. But
it's okay. I have more. So. Let's get into our time machine. Bethany, you have the time machine noise. It's beautiful. So we're in the year 1999. It is the last year of the 1900s. And here are some fun facts. So in TV, a couple great shows were debuted. Freaks and Geeks, which is so good. And I cannot believe that it only got one season. And I'm furious.
Before its time.
Yeah, absolutely. Before its time. And then we have The West Wing, which I know you are a big fan.
So good. I love The West Wing.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which truly had me in a chokehold when I was younger. We had the computer game. We had everything.
Yes, I love that you had the computer game. I did not, but I'm retroactively jealous of you right now.
It was wild. I mean, I never got past like $300, but it's fine. And then lastly, SpongeBob SquarePants debuted in 1999, which is a classic, true testament to our childhood.
He's a Broadway star now. He has a whole Broadway show. Yeah. Came out a few years ago. I don't know if it's still running, but it was nominated for some Tonys. That's your fun fact.
Oh.
It's not a bad song. I haven't listened to the whole show, but the couple songs I've heard, not bad.
Look at that. This little cartoon on Nickelodeon. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it? So that's TV. Now, as you said, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, premiered in 1999 with the most controversial Star Wars figure, I think, Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, that's true.
What are your thoughts on Jar Jar?
Big nope on Jar Jar Binks. Very annoying. Glad that his role was diminished. Big fan, though, of Ahmed Best, who plays him, who got way too much hate for years. He's just the actor. He didn't write the dialogue. he's a really nice guy. He now thankfully has been redeemed in the Star Wars community. He comes to conventions now and always gets a standing ovation, which makes me very happy. But he was very target of a lot of racist hate for many years, which he did not deserve. So I'm glad that he's made amends, or we as the Star Wars community have made amends with him, because again, he did nothing wrong. We were the ones who were in the wrong for being mean to him. Not me personally, but the other a-holes who did.
Star Wars fanboys are so racist. It's insane.
Oh, it's real bad. The Star Wars fandom is such an interesting place where you can both be, and again, I want to make it clear that like real fans are not like that, because even if you call yourself a fan and can list a bunch of trivia, if you're a racist a-hole, you're not a real fan of Star Wars, because you're completely missing the entire point of Star Wars, which is like, the Empire is like the Nazis, y'all. They're the bad guys, and the good guys are the rebellion. So you're missing the whole point. But essentially, that's why I always enjoy going to Star Wars conventions, is because you find people that just love. There's just this vitriol online, so much of people claiming to like Star Wars, who, again, in my heart of heart, I think do not actually like it because they don't understand it. But when you go to a convention and you're just like surrounded by people who just love even the bad stuff, even the Jar Jar Binks and the Phantom Menaces and all of that for a week, it's the most like amazing time. And you remember, because most of the time it's embarrassing to be like, I'm a Star Wars fan, because it's so toxic and filled with hate. But for that like 4 days when you go to Star Wars Celebration and it's like this massive love fest, you're like, oh yeah, this is why I like this.
That sounds so lovely.
It's a good time. I highly recommend it. If there's one thing I recommend to anyone who, when people talk about Star Wars, it's always like, what's your thing outside of the movies that you like? Like, is it the shows? Is it the comic books? Is it the collecting of the action figures? And my thing I always say is the conventions. It's my absolute favorite thing about Star Wars. Maybe, I mean, the movies, of course, like I guess are probably my number one, but other than that, I would say the conventions, because it is just the most magical, exhausting, but like magical experience that you can, like, seriously, it is just such a love fest for like 3 to 4 days. I love it.
That's amazing. I love that. Yes, I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about episode 1, but most of them are from like a distance. I am a Star Wars fan, but not like a super intense one, I guess, or like I don't know. I have all these Star Wars things right behind my head. But I'm not like, with Harry Potter, it was like a lifestyle. With Star Wars, it's just like something I like. But yes, Jar Jar, annoying. And Darth Maul was in it for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But I hear
could have had more.
I hear that you learn more about him in the Clone Wars show.
Yes. Yeah. And Clone Wars and Rebels, Clone Wars, he definitely has much more of a role. My husband and I always say this thing, that even the worst Star Wars movie we rather watch over most movies. So even when I say that like Phantom Menace is by far my least favorite Star Wars film, this all, by the way, everyone, is Star Wars talk. You were here for Sarah Dustin, but little did you know you'd get like a 10-minute diatribe on Star Wars. But Phantom Menace is my least favorite. It's not my husband's least favorite, but it is mine. But with that said, I also like really love it. It doesn't make any sense. Like the amount, like the score, the costuming, the Weird Al song that was made because of it, which technically came out years later, but is basically about Phantom Menace. Fantastic. So yeah, it's so weird how many things I love about Phantom Menace, even though I don't like, that's not my favorite Star Wars movie. But yeah, anyways, that's enough about me droning on about Star Wars.
I love that. I love it. Okay, so other movies that came out that are kind of relevant to our podcast, a lot of stuff came out, but some notable ones. She's All That.
Oh, yes. Also, rest in peace, Paul Walker.
R.I.P. Then American Pie came out, which is a classic. Jason Biggs, his wife, Jenny Mollen, is like my favorite, one of like my favorite celebrities of all time. I've read all of her books. She's so funny. Jason Biggs is cool too.
Yeah, he all right. No, he is. I accidentally just shaded Jason Biggs and I really didn't mean to. He seems like a really lovely guy.
But
Eugene
Jenny Mullen,
Levy, like, bless Eugene Levy for giving birth to Dan Levy so we could get Schitt's Creek.
Oh,
so thanks to all the Levies out there.
Yeah. And then we also have 10 Things I Hate About You. Speaking of hot dead people.
Oh my God. Big rest in peace. Y'all, I remember where I was when I found out Heath Ledger died. Like, I have a vivid memory of that.
Me too.
I was so sad. What a great guy. Gone before his time. That honestly depresses me.
Time. Yeah.
Great movie,
another overdose.
Yep.
Everybody should check out endoverdose.net to be trained in identifying an overdose and reversing it. It takes 30 minutes. It's very easy. But yes, I remember where I was. My sister was living in Italy for the year because her husband had was playing hockey over there, which is very fancy sounding.
Yeah, it's very fancy sounding.
It was fancy. But anyway, I was like, this was like before, I don't know, what year was this? This was like 2009 or something. So
that sounds right.
Communications were still kind of difficult between countries. And I could not figure out how to get in touch with her because I saw on Perez Hilton that Heath Ledger was dead. And I was like, I need to tell you about this.
Of course it was Perez Hilton.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you found out from Perez Hilton because, like, yeah, that would have been around that time. Yeah, it was like 08 or 09, I think. And that would have been how we were, like, getting our scoop. I actually found on the radio, which is even more, like, old school. Like,
that is
breaking news on the radio. I was driving. Here we go. If y'all listened to our first episode, you might remember. This is how much of a Sarah Dessen nerd I am. My very first car ever was named the Burtmobile in honor of the Burtmobile from The Truth About Forever. So I was driving in my car, Burt for short, and I was listening to, like, the local rock station or whatever, and they, like, finished the song, and, you know, like, they would have, like, little DJ chatter, and they came on, and they were like, oh my God, like, really sad news. Heath Ledger has passed. And I was driving on my way at the time. I was dual enrolling. So I was on my way to, like, the local community college to do, you know, like, one of my classes or whatever. I think maybe, I'm not even sure, an English class or something. And I was, like, so upset I didn't want to go to class. And then I realized, like, I would have to tell my mom that I was so upset that an actor I did not know from Adam was dead that I didn't go to class. And, like, that would not be a good enough reason. So I was like, you should really probably just drive yourself to class, Bethany. But for a hot second, y'all, I really thought about turning around and going home and just, like, mourning him that evening.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was really freaking sad. And then his poor, I don't think they were married. I don't even know if they were together at the time. But
they were separated, but they had their daughter together. And it was, like, one of those things where it was, like, you could tell they clearly still loved each other, but just their lives were crazy and they weren't, like, gonna work out. And so they were separated. They never officially, did they get married? I think they were engaged and then, like, called off the engagement essentially. And then, like, a year-ish later he had passed. And also one of the things, man, we're gonna get into this book at some point, I promise. But one of the things I love Michelle Williams, but who we were talking to, his partner, or his ex-partner, I guess, who he shares a child with. And I love her. I've loved her since Dawson's Creek. I think she's phenomenal. And she also was one of my many inspirations to get a pixie cut. I've had, like, 2 pixie cuts in my life, and pretty much Michelle Williams was responsible. Her and, like, Emma Watson were responsible for both of why I decided to get my pixie cut. And I was like, I could do that. But anywho, she's walked a pixie cut most of her life, and she did it around the time that he passed. And she said, you know, like, people always, like, men, again, oh my God, this goes back to how to deal and, like, men and their weird obsession with women with long hair and how they can control it. And so she's like, you know, my whole life men were always telling me that I didn't look good with long hair, and I wear it short for the one person who always told me I did look good with it, like, in honor of Heath, basically. And I was like, and also she looks so good with the pixie cut. So, like, you're right to rock it, girlfriend. But yeah, I always remember that quote, and I was like,
oh my God.
It's just really sad. And it's sad that I think their daughter was, like, she was, like, a year or under at the time, and she, like, never got to know her father, and that just breaks my heart.
That is so sad. Oh man, yeah, that is sad. I also love Michelle Williams. I freaking love Dawson's Creek. How can you not love Dawson's Creek?
How can you not love Dawson's Creek?
It's a classic.
If you're listening to this podcast and you don't love Dawson's Creek, I'm shocked.
I'm shocked and
truly shocked.
To be honest.
If that was not something you were into.
Yeah. Oh, also Fight Club came out.
Ugh.
I decided to bring it up because in one of our episodes we were like, don't date a guy whose favorite movie is Fight Club. So yeah, every terrible guy that you know's favorite movie came out in 1999 as well.
And boy, did a lot of them love. It was like a lot of pretentious films came out, and
yeah.
like Fight Club,
The Matrix,
American Beauty. I think that's another one that it's like, oh god, the bag blowing in the wind. Green Mile. I think that's not pretentious. I like the Green Mile, but I think that came out in '99. And The Matrix. Those all don't really have much to do with our show. We're more excited about you people on this podcast, but 99 is always like heralded in like film culture. It's like a very big year, a very big like game-changing year.
Yeah,
right on. 1990.
Yeah,
we're at time.
So then I just want to go over two more things: music, and then just like random shit, nostalgia shit.
Yes.
So music, the top 5 on the international charts.
Oh, hit me! I'm excited.
Baby One More Time by Britney Spears, of course.
Damn straight.
Mambo Number 5 by Lou Bega.
Yes.
That's a great one.
Here's something everyone's going to find out at the same time, because I'm certain this has never come up between Michael and I, because why would it have? But fun fact for everyone, I actually used to twirl baton. I'm actually a state champion baton twirler. No lie, I'm a state champion in something, and it is baton twirling. So yeah, be jealous, everyone, of my talent. Just kidding. But for one of our recitals, we did a piece to Mambo Number 5, and I will never forget it. I really liked that because we were broken up by age groups, essentially, in baton, and like my, I don't know, baton academy is the best thing I can think of, like my baton company, I guess. And the recital, we always did one number where like all the age groups got to perform together. And that year, 1999, we did it to Mambo Number 5, and I loved it because it was always fun when you like, from the littlest girls to the biggest girls, like all got to do a piece together. 10 out of
10. My sisters both did, I think it's the same thing. They both did color guard.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah, so I've watched a lot of videos of them because I was not alive by the time they were doing it. But yeah, that is delightful.
When I'm watching like college marching bands or whatever, I like hone in on the baton twirlers and I judge them a little bit. Honestly, so many of them are way more talented than I stopped when I was like fairly young. So, I mean, if I would have continued, I would have been a star.
You'd have been a baton twirling star.
Oh, man, it would have been legendary.
Oh my God. So number 3 is another song that I feel really bad. This is going to get stuck in everyone's head. I'm so sorry. This song, Blue.
Oh, God.
Dabadi by Eiffel 65.
God, 1999 was a time. What a
it
time.
Really was. What was that song? What was that song?
What were we doing? Oh, man.
I cannot even. Number 4 is No Scrubs by TLC, another timeless classic. Never gets old. And then finally, wrapping up the top 5 charts, I Want It That Way by Backstreet Boys.
Oh, yes.
Typical. Of course.
As an NSYNC girl, I'm offended that no NSYNC songs were in the top 5.
I'm also an NSYNC girl. So my parents saved one box of items from my childhood. No Sarah Dessen books. I had to rebuy all of them.
Dang it.
But inside of this little box of my childhood possessions was a Justin Timberlake No Strings Attached bobblehead and a Justin Timberlake No Strings Attached Mariette doll.
The doll, we had one too. Yeah. I'm glad we were both Justin girls as well, which I regret that now a little bit.
Oh, hell yeah, I regret that.
We didn't know that at the time, okay?
We didn't know. We were just children, okay? We had no idea.
We were little children.
We weren't looking at the ramifications of his actions, his sexism. Anyway, moving on. And so then a couple other things that were popular in 1999 that I wanted to talk about. First thing is fingerboards, the skateboards for your fingers.
Yes, I do remember those. Oh, those were dangerous in school because you'd always get them taken away because you start playing and they'd be like, no.
Yep.
Classic.
My parents wouldn't buy one for me, but I remember all the kids had one, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. You can just do like, people did like kick flips and stuff, and it was like
with their fingers.
amazing. I loved that. And then Pokemon cards came out in 1999, which I was like, which feels wrong. No,
Like it should be longer.
like they like, because I remember I was big on Pokemon cards when I was living in Marshfield, and I lived in Marshfield from 1995 until 2001. So I would think it went longer than that, but I guess 1999 to 2001 is a long time when you're a kid.
Decent, yeah, especially for like a childhood fad, you know, because I guess I would have been, what grade was I in as we entered the millennium? I think I was in 3rd grade, so that sounds right to me about the time that like, because I feel like from like 3rd grade to like 5th grade, Pokemon cards were like the thing. So that, I guess that tracks probably. Yeah.
I still have a lot of mine. Still, that was another thing my parents kept. Shout out. And then, of course, we had the Nokia cell phone game Snake.
Oh, the amount of time I spent playing Snake, I can't even. Snake got me through so many. Like, I remember, I want to say probably around that time, I don't know why. It just like, it's probably, there's like 5 states, in the United States of America, that give a crap about high school football, and I happen to live in one of them. So I remember for some odd reason, we had to go to high school football games before even I feel like my sisters were even in high school. I don't know. I just remember we went to them sometimes, and I had no idea why I needed to be there. And my parents obviously had like Nokia phones, and I would just like sit there playing Snake because I like did not give a crap about this high school football game. Alas.
I loved it. I always played it on my siblings' phones. And then, as you said, too, the last thing I had is the Y2K panic. Everyone thought the world was going to end. In 1999, I was 7. I was 7 in 1999, and I thought that I have an anxiety disorder and OCD, and it was very much untreated and ignored when I was a child. And I truly thought the world was going to end. I remember being so terrified on New Year's Eve. I was like, this is it. This is the end. We're all going to die. I know it. That poor little girl.
It is really funny. Not funny that you just said that, because obviously it's not funny, but ironic that you said that, because I was just about to say, as an adult who now understands she has anxiety, and as a child who did not know that anxiety was like anxiety is a thing, but like, I have an anxiety disorder or whatever. That tracks. That makes so much sense, because no one in my family was concerned about it. And I was so worried. Like, we had to go over to family friend's house that night, and I thought like the world's going to end, and my parents just want to go to a party. And I remember like thinking that in my little, child brain, which again, I did not understand that I was a little anxious child. But now as an anxious adult, I understand that. And I was like, that's just so funny that you just said that. Because I was like, yes, same. I 100% bought into it. Like, my dad is very like pragmatic about that kind of stuff. And they would like watch the news all the time, and they'd talk about it. And I was terrified of it. And my dad was just like, it's not a big deal. They're working on it. It's not a big deal. But we literally, because again, like obviously at that age, I was not allowed to stay up very late, very often. Because I was like 8 years old or whatever. And the one time was when New Year's, so I was allowed to like stay up to midnight, and then you basically had to go to bed like right after. So we're at our family friend's party, and they were counting down, and I really thought everything was just, because the commercials kept being like, everything's gonna go boom. And I really thought that in my mind that was gonna happen. And I just remember like being so relieved when like all the lights were still on and everything. And I was like, okay, we're all right.
I know. I feel like all we have to do is tell a therapist that story, and they'll be like, okay, yeah, you do need
like,
medicine.
That's what you probably should have known, that you were a little anxious child. And it's like, yeah, I didn't get that then. But you know what? It wasn't until college that I understood the anxiety. If I only would have known in my younger years that the thoughts I were having were not normal.
I can't even tell you how much different my life would have been if I understood that I had OCD when I was like 12 instead of not knowing until I was like 28.
Right.
Because that shit's scary. That shit's fucking scary when you don't know what it is and you're like, oh my God, if I wear these clothes again, my whole family's going to die in a car crash. Like, it's very stressful.
Yeah, especially for a little child, like with a like it is stressful now as an adult, like when you're a little child with your little child brain, like
incomprehensible, really. Mm-hmm. So that's everything I wanted to say about 1999.
Hi everyone. Basically, moral of the story: 1999. What a time!
What a time!
Brace yourself. Did also everyone out there with anxiety, did you think the world was going to end in Y2K? And are you like, dang, yeah, I really should have known then that something was a little off with the chemicals in my brain. Wouldn't it have been nice to know?
It would have been really nice to know.
Maybe it would have been nice to know.
So here we are, Keeping the Moon, copyright 1999. So one thing we haven't been doing that I wanted to start doing.
The dedications?
Yes.
Okay, seriously, this is freaky because I was just about, we're like really, wow. Apparently whatever episode we're on now, episode 10, we have actually just morphed into one person.
It was bound to happen.
But yes, I agree. Can we, because I read this dedication and I was like, we need to read this. And also we really should start reading the dedications. Why have we not done that? But you know what? We're only on book 3, so we caught on pretty early.
Agreed. So I'll read it. It says, For Lee Smith, who taught me, and for past and present dancing burrito girls everywhere. I would like to acknowledge Janet Marks and the Hensley family for their unwavering presence and support, and Phil and Vicki Campbell for my years at the Flying Burrito, the inspiration for this story, and countless others. Thank you. I will say, as we talked about in the first episode, I believe, Sarah Dessen was a waitress. She worked at the Flying Burrito. And Bethany and I have been waitressing for like a decade, basically. Yeah. That's how we met. That's how we met our partners. And there is something to be said about the camaraderie and the friendships that you make in the restaurant industry. There's really nothing like it. You don't find that kind of support system in a corporate setting, I will tell you. Even though we have both worked at corporate restaurants, it's different because it's still a restaurant. And so I love that this book is dedicated to the waitresses and I'm sure there are also waiters, I should just say servers, at the Burrito Girls, the Flying Burrito. And I love that. And I think that that is a great way to start this beautiful story about friendships in the service industry.
Yes, I thoroughly agree with you. I very much enjoyed this dedication. I like something about, which again, I guess is probably just because I have worked, in the service industry for so long. When I read that, like, for past and present dancing burrito girls everywhere, like it got me like a little misty-eyed. So I was like, yeah, like there really is something about all the ones you worked with and like wanting better for the ones that come after you, and there is bonds, like you were saying, like you really are forged in like fire if you like become friends with someone because of like a restaurant. Like the conversations you have, the weird bond that you have for life it's very hard to explain unless you've also been in the service industry. So anyone out there, our fellow service industry peeps, we respect you and what you do, and I'm sure that you all can very much relate to this novel as much as the two of us have been relating to it.
Absolutely. So
chapter 1, we finally have kind of a normal name. Nicole Sparks is like a pretty average sounding name. She does go by Colby, which is, I guess, slightly different. And in chapter 1, do we already get very different mommy issues than the last 2 novels? But of course, in typical Sarah Dessen fashion, 2 pages in, and you're like, ooh, there they are. They're present. And also, boy, do we get some real like fat phobic 1999. Which I will say, like, Sarah Dessen isn't really being fat phobic because of the things she says kind of in later chapters and the way, like, we're supposed to be sympathizing with Colby here, who is like kind of upset that she lost weight. Like, she was kind of okay the way that she was. And her mom is, I think, very much kind of painted in the wrong here. So I will give Sarah Dessen credit where I'm saying that she is not being fat phobic herself, but boy, there's some real fat phobic stuff going on in chapter 1.
Yeah, I think right off the bat we can notice that one of the major themes that we're going to see in this novel, and we've seen it in the past a little bit, but I think a major theme in this is body dysmorphia, fat phobia, of course. But I think, this was one of my favorites, and I know I read it a bunch, but it's been so long, and so I don't remember how it ends, but so far it feels like, as you said, like we are seeing someone trying to become comfortable with weight, and we see Mira, who we'll get to, who seems fine with her weight, and that's how everyone should be, because no matter your size, you're beautiful, and it doesn't matter, and health isn't even related. And listen to Maintenance Phase, the podcast.
Oh my God, literally listen to Maintenance. So much in chapter 1, I was like, Maintenance Phase was tearing you apart, Kiki.
yeah. Michael Hobbs and oh no, I forgot her name.
Aubrey Gordon.
Yes, Michael Hobbs and Aubrey Gordon would rip Fly Kiki a new one.
Boy, would they. And also, it's so funny reading this first chapter, how I realized, because when we first, what is her full name again? Catherine, I believe, before she becomes Kiki. When she first like starts her journey, like seems like a really likable person, like maybe a little bit of a hot mess, but like, and I'm not saying body wise, I want that to be clear. I just mean like in her life, they were like living out of a car. So like, she might not have been like the most responsible adult, but she seemed like a good mom, a good caring person, great personality. And I've listened to one too many episodes of Maintenance Phase where they talk about all these weird people who start fad diets. And it's like, they were this nice, normal person. They started this diet book. They started over, and they just like go off their ever-loving mind and become like the weirdest people. And I'm like, why is it that everyone that suddenly turns to like hella diet culture turns into the weirdest people?
Speaking of the restaurant industry, I just want to mention, I just want to give a little shout out to all of the servers who become like personal trainers, quote unquote, with no training whatsoever. They're just like social media personal trainers that are like, first of all, it's not healthy. It's not safe. They do not know what they're talking about.
No,
they're
they
basically just scamming you and filling you with like emotional or like a positive quotes and all that bullshit.
Yeah. Life coaches out there.
Yes. Life coaches. Yeah.
I love throwing that term around.
They're like, get to the gym. Nothing helps you your depression more than
girl boss. Work it out. Whatever. And it's like, no. Also, never take a diet advice. Like, go see if you actually just want to like eat better. Again, not for losing weight purposes, but because you're like, I'm feeling tired. Maybe my health isn't good. My doctor told me I need to get my cholesterol down. Like, go see someone who actually went to school for years to learn these things, nutritionists and doctors. And again, even doctors aren't the best at stuff sometimes, let's be honest. If you're going to a general practitioner, which again, it's not their fault. I'm not saying they are purposely trying to be bad. It's just they did not specialize in that thing. They have a bunch of general knowledge to be a general practitioner. So go to your general practitioner and be like, hey, what's up, GP? Can I get a specialist who can help me with these things? And go talk to them, and not someone who randomly decided one day they wanted to be a girl boss and and become a life coach, because they don't know what they're talking about. And they're not going to set you up for the healthiest lifestyle. They're just going to try to cut calories, which is...
And do workouts that aren't personalized to your body and your skill set, and it's unsafe, people, okay? And also, this is another reminder, tip your servers or they will become life coaches and harass all their
Nobody
coworkers.
wants that, everyone. So please, I'm telling you, let your servers make a good living wage so they don't have to cram up all of our social media accounts with their life coaching abilities, okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Public service announcement.
We're already in it, people. Okay.
We're already in it.
So we see like Kiki is dropping Colby. I think I've been pronouncing it Colby in my head, but Colby is probably right.
Colby, because like Nicole.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I guess.
Yeah. So Colby is getting dropped off at the train station. She's going to go stay with her kind of estranged aunt in Colby, North Carolina for the summer because Kiki is going on a European tour and apparently doesn't want to bring her daughter, which seems kind of shady, but okay.
Yeah. Why can't she go to Europe?
Seriously. But on page 2, I had to make a note. I know we talk about Gilmore Girls a lot, but she kind of mentions that Kiki's assistant will be fired before they even reach the airport, which is very Emily Gilmore with her maids.
Yes.
Rich white women who just yell at the help.
Yep. Yeah, she's dropping her off. Yeah, that part. I also got Gilmore Girls vibes from that. And then she's basically telling her, already, it's like page 2, and I'm already like, this mother. And she's like, you'll keep up your workouts, right? It would be a shame to gain all that weight back. Oh, fuck off. Okay, she's a teenage girl, and her body is literally changing at this age, and your weight is going to fluctuate, and that's fine, because that's what happens with hormones.
And that will travel. One of the things, I think they talk about this in maintenance phase, or maybe this is just something I've seen before, but as an adult, all of the body issues you have, a lot of them can come from your mother. If your mother was someone who was constantly dieting, obsessing over their weight, obsessing over your weight, and, they're just a product of capitalism and, whatever our standards for beauty. But yeah, I mean, this is like, she's going to carry this with her, It's not good. It's not good.
I'm like, she's 15 and you made your daughter join like a workout regimen and made her lose 45 pounds at 50. And like, that's the thing. It's like, it really doesn't seem in this first chapter, as she's kind of, Colby is describing it, that like, that was something she really wanted to do. Yeah. Which, even if she wanted to, probably, not good. But it's like even worse that it just feels like it was very much forced upon her. We do talk about, so she's getting dropped off. They're saying their goodbyes. Kiki's being very Kiki Sparks, fitness woman extraordinaire, and telling her daughter to not eat too much and, exercise and whatnot. And so then Colby kind of talks about her first real memory, which is leaving a 7-Eleven. It sounds like they moved a lot. They were leaving, I believe, Texas before they inevitably end up in Charlotte, which is where she now lives full time. Of course, she's going to Colby, so she's taking the train to go over to Colby, and she was talking about like her mom, and she just seemed like she was just like really, I don't know, full of life. Like she seemed like she had like a really big personality, which of course she says they called up the fat years, which again, just like, cringe. Yeah, cringe. That's what you're instilling in your daughter, is to think of, I just can't imagine. I can't imagine like raising a human and making them like, I don't think like intentionally she's trying to make her feel like crap, but like you're making your own daughter feel like crap about herself, which I just can't imagine doing that. So she's talking about how her mom kind of jumped from job to job. She was doing Mary Kay. She was doing all these different, things here and there. And then she gets to Charlotte, where she ends up working at this basically a lady fitness is what it's called or whatever. And she gets into aerobics class. And this is the thing that just like makes me really sad, because she talks about how the instructors loved her and she really started enjoying it. And she kind of found a community, which again, it sounds like they jump from place to place. And part of me like loves that for her mom, that she was able to find this community doing this thing that she liked. Because again, like there is nothing obviously inherently wrong with working out by any means. Like work out if that's something you want to, that is good for you. Again, if you're doing it for beauty standard reasons, I'd recommend, that not being your focus as to why you want to work out. But if you're doing it, for just overall like mental health reasons and, whatever, helping with, energy levels and stuff, then like right on. And so it sounds like she just kind of started doing it because it was fun and she liked it. And she had this like larger than life personality and people loved her classes. And it just makes me so sad that she was just like so normal and just like loving this community that exercise. Because again, like exercise, we've all seen Legally Blonde. Exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. Happy people don't kill people. So she's getting all these endorphins and building this community, and that's great. And it does make me sad because I do take, there's a dance studio that I go to and I take a couple of dance classes. I try to go weekly, but if I'm honest, the last couple of weeks with the way work has been, I don't always make it every week, but I do love going. And I mostly go because of, like just the community of it. There's instructors that I love and I want to see them and I want to see what dances they've come up with. And the lady who owns the studio is the nicest lady. And you see the same people in the classes. You're like, oh, hey, how's it going? And like, that's why I go. And again, because as much as I hate to admit it, like you do feel really good afterward.
I know. It's so annoying.
But you really do. And it's fun. And so it just makes me sad when people turn that into diet culture and this obsessive need to look perfect and whatever, when that's not what going to an aerobics class honestly should be about. And I know the people go to aerobics classes because they want to look a certain way, but I was like, no, it should be about like, I don't know, dancing and having a good time and like picking out fun songs and not whatever,
not being so stressed. Yeah, it's very unfortunate to see something that just seemed like something that was giving her life turn into kind of an obsession that she puts onto her young daughter, who she forces to also lose a bunch of weight.
Yeah, she said at the top of page 6 about like, sometimes in my bed at night, I find myself still pinching the skin at my waist, forgetting that there was nothing there to hold on to anymore. Ugh. Just tear out my heart right now. That's so depressing.
Yeah, I feel really bad about this. Yeah, she says, my body had changed, parts of me just disappearing like I'd wish them away. I had cheekbones, muscles, a flat stomach, clear skin, just like my mother, but something was missing, something that made us different. I could build muscle, but not confidence. There were no exercises for that.
I love that line.
And that's another thing too, like, I have gained 20 pounds in the last 2 years, which I've basically consistently been the same weight my whole life. And I've been really struggling with that. But it's like, it doesn't matter really what your body looks like. You need to have like that inner love and that inner confidence that you just can't get from just looking how, you think society wants you to look or whatever.
Preach. Yeah, I think it is a lot easier. I think self-love is like the hardest thing to give, because I can look at all of my friends and my family. And again, I look at my nieces and like, they just have such spunk and style. Like my niece, Millie, the outfit she picks out sometimes. And we always tell her like, I hope you never lose your sparkle. And I really hope that, and I just know like, it's inevitable that people are going to tear each other down. Like that's what happens when you go to school and whatnot, and you reach a certain age, unfortunately. That's what we all do to each other at 13, and we shouldn't. But yeah, obviously I hope for all of my nieces that they'll always love their bodies and always feel confident. And it just makes me sad because I know that it's not the case. Like that's just not how it works. And it is so much easier to look at everyone and be like, oh my God, you're great. But when it is yourself, like I had to go wedding dress shopping right after the world shut down for a global pandemic. And I was stress eating and I was not working, which again, I'm a server. So I'm constantly on my feet, constantly moving. So imagine just sitting in your apartment for a month and then having to go wedding dress shopping. And the first person, I went to an outlet, and so outlets are off the rack. And so I told the lady what my dress size was, and she said, "Are you sure about that?" to me. And I wanted to leave, and I like almost burst into tears. And so I really wanted to go. And my sister was like, "I'm not letting her near you. Like, you're going to go pick out dresses, and she's not coming near you again." And my mom and my sister both like told her to go away, basically. And I picked out things, and she basically just kept saying that like things weren't going to fit me. And I already felt really insecure about my body at that time. And again, we all go through bits and phases where we do. And then I went to the next store, which was not an outlet. So it was when you just kind of tried things. And actually someone that I worked with at my restaurant, she had picked up a new job because, you know, she knew she wasn't going to be back at our venue for a while. And it was just night and day experience. Like I got to feel like good about myself in that next one. But yeah, like nothing like already feeling really insecure about like the quarantine weight you put on, and then having a lady like be a straight up BS to you. So yeah. And like, no lie, y'all, that whole like you enter your 30s, your metabolism slows down thing is so true.
It's so true. Oh my God. I said 20 pounds in the last 2 years, but honestly, it's been just the last like 7 months. None of my clothes fit me. It's like a whole thing. I'm actually really worried that my wedding dress isn't going to fit me anymore, but I'm just
it's going to be fine. It's going to be
staying
fine.
positive.
You've got this. It's going to be fine. But yeah, it's really hard. But you know, as our queen Taylor Swift once talked about in her documentary Miss Americana, she obviously, like most of the world, had some body issues, which a lot of that's featured in her new fantastic album. And she was talking about how she couldn't perform. Like she couldn't at the end of the night doing shows because she was starving herself. Like, yeah, she looked good, supposedly, again, what society deems good. But she was exhausted at the end of every show. And she got to a point where she was like, I'd rather be 20 pounds heavier and be able to perform my heart out every night for my fans than starve myself. Like, this is bullshit. Like, I have no energy. This is dumb. Why am I doing this to myself? And it's like, hell yeah, girl. Like, your body is here to like, you're here to nourish it, and it's there to get you through the day every day, and you know whatnot. Yeah. It's not like look good for other people.
Right. And Taylor Swift is literally been skinny her whole like
so skinny, and like the fact that she felt the need, but that's literally the society we live in, where someone like Taylor Swift, who is tall, blonde, gorgeous, everything that society deems as like a beauty standard, and she still felt the need to starve herself like that. That's where we're at, y'all. I knew that there was going to be some ranting in this novel, but it's like the twofold. It's the 1-2 punch of like body image plus service industry. And
yeah.
And there's really going to be a lot to say.
It's going to be a lot to say. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, God. I remember when I started wearing makeup for the first time, I had to ask permission because that's just the life I lived. And my sister, I remember my sister specifically saying like, it's okay that you're going to start to wear makeup. It's normal, but I never want you to stop loving yourself without makeup. And that has stuck with me my whole life. And I can tell you that I did stop loving myself without makeup for like a good 10 years. I couldn't even go run an errand without putting on a full face full of makeup. So it's another thing too, man. It's just like, it's fucking hard. I hope my nieces never go through that, but I'm sure that they have and will. And that's a bummer. When any of you guys are listening, I love you. You're beautiful. You've been beautiful since the moment you popped out of your mother's, and you are perfect and wonderful and amazing. Always. Always. Right. Ain't nothing you can do that would make you not beautiful.
Exactly.
Smooch. Mwah.
Much love. And this has been Michael, Ann, and Bethany love their nieces. Like, if that really needs a whole theme song, because like once an episode, we're just like, God damn, our nieces are great. Also, shout out to my nephews. I feel like I don't get it. It's just like the girl power of it all.
Oh yeah, I like my nephews too.
I love my nephews a lot as well, and they're awesome. And keep on keeping. I like how also I say this, like all of my nieces and nephews are way too young to be listening to this, but I don't know, maybe one day they'll listen to it and be like, yeah, hot damn.
Mine are not. And I sent my niece Samantha the first 3 books, and she follows me on Instagram. And listen, girl, you better be listening. Just kidding. It's fine if you don't. You have a life.
I will find you at Michael Ann's wedding, and I'll be like, hey, girl, do you know this voice? Because you should.
Do you know who I am?
And she'll be like, please leave me alone, crazy lady.
Oh my gosh.
So we're at the train station. We've now got to Colby. And we're going to meet Norman, who I'm not going to lie. And again, I have read this book before. So that's the only reason I really remembered that he's like her age-ish. He's like a little bit older than her, I think. But when he first comes to pick her up, I was like, I kind of for a hot second forgot that he was supposed to be a teenager. And I thought that it was like her aunt's boyfriend.
Okay,
and then it dawned on me later on that I'm like, oh no, he's like a teenager.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, he's her age, which is like, or like a little bit older. Obviously, he like lives in the basement, so I'm sure we'll get to that at some point. I don't remember, but I think what's tripping me out and me thinking that he's an older man is because he's described as a deadhead, and
yeah, which I think of deadheads as being like 60-year-old hippies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I for sure thought that and she's like talking with the long hair or whatever, and in my mind I thought it was a gray ponytail, and then I'm like, no, wait, he's a teenager.
Yeah, really thought he was an older guy too. I was like, this is an older man.
Also, I have to like, his name is Norman.
Right. Norman.
As well is a little, and I did the math because I don't think it's in this chapter. So I'm sorry that I'm like kind of jumping ahead, but we're about to meet her aunt. So it's pertinent. So essentially she says that her mother had her at 20. So if she is 15, her mother should be like 35. Which means that her aunt, because she said her aunt is 2 years older than her mom. So her aunt should be like 37. And again, as someone who is now in my 30s, 37 does not seem that old. And the way that Mira is presented in this novel, she seems, I mean, I guess she's just kind of supposed to be eccentric, but she presents so much older than someone who is 37. So that's just another weird little thing I noted. But I was like, I suppose if Sarah Dustin would have been, I don't know, like late 20s at this point, that like someone like a decade older than you would seem a lot older. I don't know.
When she comes on the podcast, we can talk to her about it.
For sure. Because it's gonna happen.
Yeah, so we meet Norman. He's like a manic deadhead dream boy, I guess.
Yeah, he also does have manic pixie dream boy, but he's definitely very eccentric. Very manic pixie dream boy, again, except for apparently manic pixie deadhead. But he does seem a lot nicer than the last. So far, we're early, yeah. But he like, I don't know, seems like a nice guy. Like he lives with this kind of eccentric lady. He collects sunglasses. Again, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. We'll get to that. And he works. We'll learn what he does, but yeah, he just, I don't know, the fact that he like went like picked her up, I thought was kind of nice. Like this lady was just like, yo, go pick up my niece from the train station. He's like, all right, whatever.
And I really like the whole bit he does with the buttmaster. He's like, wow, what's this for? And then when he's unloading her car, he like places it perfectly on top of like her pile of stuff, which I thought was so funny. Getting a little Norman humor here.
Yeah, he seems like he's got a good sense of humor. This is where we also meet Cat Norman. So there's Cat Norman and Norman, which I do love that bit. I think that that's quite funny. I am a fan of both Cat Norman and Norman so far. Again, it's early, but so far I like both of them.
Another Gilmore Girls reference. We of course had Cat Kirk and Human Kirk.
Yes. That is very accurate. I also enjoy, so here she is just kind of like getting to meet her aunt. And this is when we first get to learn about like the little notes she leaves around. And I love them. I really like Mira so far. I like that she's like comfortable in her own skin. She's doing her. I love her weird little notes. She's an artist, which also kind of explains some of the eccentricness. I can't talk right now. Sorry, everyone. I was like, the word I'm looking for, eccentric. There we go. So she seems like and also when she meets her, she's watching wrestling and is like super into it. And I love that. Like, I just think that's so funny. And also it's like very, because this was like 99. It was like a big, my husband who used to be like a big wrestle person, I think this may have been the Attitude Era or something. I don't know. I know there's like eras to wrestling. I was never into wrestling. But I can respect people that are. obviously most people that are interesting like know that it's fake, but like it's the same as watching a soap opera or watching Dawson's Creek. I know that none of this is real, but I'm so invested in it. And I love people that just like, I don't know, like it's a dumb thing, but it brings them joy. And that makes me happy for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah Dessen has, I know we've talked about this and we're going to keep talking about it, but Sarah Dessen has like such an incredible talent for creating characters. Like every single detail she puts into them just paints such a vivid picture, and it is truly like beautiful, honestly. I really wanted to read really quick the description of Norman's car, because this is one of those moments where I'm just like, girl, amazing. But it says, Norman's car was downright strange. Besides our headless fellow passengers, there were about 20 tiny plastic animals glued to the dashboard, lined up carefully, and a huge pair of fuzzy red dice bouncing from the rearview mirror. I think my favorite part about this is that there's a bunch of headless mannequins. I just love it.
And also that she like kind of is like shading him and like giving him like a fake compliment, and he like takes it sincerely. Like I love that he's like, I don't know, just so far he gives off like a very like earnest thing. Like I don't think that he like has a hint of like, you know what I mean? Like I think that he understands that people are poking fun at him and being sarcastic, but he's like, I'm not going to stoop to your level. Like I'm going to take it as a genuine compliment. And I love people that can do that. That just are like, I'm not letting you get to me. Like I like it, and I'm going to take that as a compliment. And like that's the vibe I got off of him from that scene. And I was like, I love that. Then he's like, yeah, because she's like, nice car or whatever. And he's like, thanks. And he's like, it's a work in progress. Like he's like proud of his weird car. And I'm like, that's kind of adorable, Norman. Like I'm proud of you and your weird car, you know?
I also love Mira, as you said. On page 13, we get a description of Mira. It says, Mira was overweight, just like my mother had been before she became Kiki Sparks. She had a wide face and long red hair piled up on her head, like she'd done it in a hurry. A pencil and a pen were sticking out of it. She had an old, deep green kimono patterned with dragons, a big white t-shirt, black leggings, and flip-flops. Her toenails were painted bright pink. She sounds freaking delightful. Honestly, like Aunt goals. Am I right?
Yeah, I want to be Aunt Mira. I think that's now my goal in life.
Same.
People will be like, oh, Aunt Mira, she's got these weird notes around and she's watching wrestling, but she seems like a nice lady. We get to chapter 2, I believe, unless there's any other thoughts that we have on chapter 1.
I'm trying to read this note right here.
You're like, I wrote myself a note and don't know what it says.
I want to highlight. Wait. Oh, I want to highlight everything. Oh, it's when Mira is talking about Cat Norman, and she says, he's the light of my life, but he's in his terrible twos right now and going through a real distant phase. It's just breaking my heart. I just thought that was so cute. Like,
bless you, Mira. She honestly seems, she just seems so great. I love it. Does. Also, Cat Norman, I hope that he gets through his terrible twos and they can live happy life together.
He will. Okay, yes, chapter 2.
Chapter 2. So they're watching wrestling. Mira basically is like, oh, there's this place right down the corner. Like, I'm hungry. Are you hungry? I'm dying for a grilled chicken salad. And Coley's like, yeah, I could definitely eat. And Mira's all like, it's your first day. Let me treat. And that's when Coley realizes like, oh, you want me to go by myself? You're not going to come with you. And she's all like, I went out to town once. I don't want to go out to town again. And I was like, honestly, I've never related to a character more in my life. Like when I'm in, baby. I ain't go like Uber Eats was invented for people like me because I'm like, nope, I got my PJs on. Like I come home from work, I put on like my bum clothes. And sometimes Michael will be like, hey, do you want to go to Target? And I go, no, I'm in for the night. I put on my bum clothes and I'm in for the night.
My bra is not on anymore. So no, Mike. So
we're done. We're done for the night. And this is when we first get our first glimpse of the Last Chance Bar and Grill, which we will learn to know and love very shortly. So basically, Coley goes in to pick up a to-go order for her and Mira. And this is where she's still, which I do like this, I'll read the description of her first take at Last Chance. So the Last Chance Bar and Grill was a small building on the corner, right before the exit on the bridge that crossed over to the mainland. It had one lone streetlight, a few parking places, and a neon sign that said, Mira style food. I loved that. I thought that was so good. I was like, yes. So that just sets you up for, again, it's definitely like a mom and pop kind of dive, not like dive bar, but like dive restaurant kind of vibe. Definitely, as someone who has spent a lot of time in Curie, Topsail, Wrightsville, what's the other one? Surf City, or all over the Carolina Beach. That is, I have frequented many a Last Chance Bar and Grills in my time, and they are very filled with tourists in bathing suits and just like tiny little seafood beach places. They're fantastic, and everyone should spend a summer in North Carolina if you can. So this is when she first gets to meet Morgan and Isabel, which I love that we literally meet Morgan as she is threatening to quit. And anyone who has ever worked in the service industry understands that, because that happens at least like
constantly.
You know, once a week, once a shift, you're like, I could just walk out. I could just walk out right now. What would they do? They can't. I could just walk out. Just think about it all the time. And I love that Isabel like is not even fazed, because clearly this is something she does all the time. So she throws her apron and she's, you know, gonna go quit or whatever. And of course she does not end up actually quitting. All of a sudden Norman comes out from the back, because we now learn that he works there, and he's like, hey, this is for you and Mira. And he's all like, cool. And then he goes back behind the window. So we realize that he is a cook. I highlighted on page 25. This is not anything. This isn't one of those like, wow, Sarah Dessen is a great author moments. Although, yes, 25 pages in, I'm already wowed by her 18,000 times over. But I just highlighted that she got a chicken Caesar salad, a hamburger with french fries and onion rings, all for $15.18 with tax. And I was like, that's some 1999 shit right there.
You're like, not getting
I know it's just like a dive bar, but still $15.18 with tax. Are you kidding me? What a steal.
What a steal. Yeah, I love, so throughout this like entire scene, you know, spotted throughout this whole situation is Morgan being like, I hate this. I'm going to quit. And she says at one point, I quit. And now I will go out and give those rude, inconsiderate fascists a piece of my mind.
I love that she calls them fascists, by the way. Too. Fantastic.
And I just love
in that moment that I fell in love with Morgan.
Yes. And I was like, am I Morgan? Because I have been known to make a scene in the side stations. Okay.
As someone who has worked with Michael and can confirm.
I have a lot of feelings and a lot of emotions, and I feel them fully. What can I say?
Michael Ann, a typical show with Michael Ann is like 80% negative comments, 20% positivity. And when you get that, like, because they're like sprinkled in, is it like all in one dose, you know? So when you get that like sprinkled in, you're like, okay, her day's turned around. All right. And then like 10 minutes later, you're like, oh no, she's back. She's back on the negative comment train.
To be fair, the restaurant that we worked at together, an incredibly, at least when I worked there, I don't know what it is like now, but when I was there, it was like incredibly toxic, incredibly bad, low standards. We didn't have any of the supplies we needed. Our managers were all pretty much useless except for one, Kim, my angel, my everything, big kisses. And so I was like, already, and I was going through a lot personally, so it was like I was already in a bad space. But I will say that I will cause a scene. And I don't have any regrets.
I also can't throw that much shade though. I mean, I'm a pretty most people that I work with will say I'm positive, which I guess like overall I'm a pretty positive person. But I am also a very emotional person and a very anxious person. And of course, being anxious and working in the service industry can really be difficult sometimes. So I also I'm 100% guilty of being the person who like goes and cries in the walk-in. Like that's me. I'm a crier. I like the weirdest things I'm the type of person who can have like a shift where 90% of it is really good and all my guests are like super nice to me and I'm rocking it and we're feeling good, and like one table is mean to me and I'm like, oh, the worst day ever. And it's like, it's not, it was one table, but all it takes is like that one person to just be an absolute dick to you, and whew, it can really,
or like stiff you. And one thing that's really frustrating for me as well is like, to me, guest experience is the most important part of the job. And if you are working for a company that is not giving you the tools you need to give that guest experience, to give the best guest experience you can, that's going to make me annoyed and mad, because it's like, there's no reason that this restaurant doesn't have any ice right now in the middle of a dinner rush. There's no reason why the glassware is not clean. This place serves 1,000 people. What the hell are we doing? I think 1,000 people is dramatic. No, I don't even think it is. I think
it's pretty accurate, actually. Yeah. You're close. You're pretty spot on with that.
Like, just run your business. Well,
that's the thing. And any restaurant I've worked at, it's like when you don't have the tools. I've had many conversations with managers in the past being like, it's embarrassing. Like, it's I'm trying, like, I literally, it is in our name, the service industry. I'm trying to serve these people. I genuinely want people to have a good time. Like, I genuinely do. Like, I'm not just like, yes, obviously we're all there to get paid because we live in a capitalist hellscape. But at the end of the day, like, I also do genuinely care about my guests and I want them to have a good time. And it is straight up embarrassing when I don't have plates to give them to share an appetizer or something like that. Like, it makes you look dumb. It makes you look like you forgot something. And it's like, no, I'm really, really trying to get you this thing right now. Actually, I just don't have the supplies to do that. And it's embarrassing. And
it is embarrassing.
The service industry, y'all. I swear the world would be a much better place if everyone, at least for a day, had to work a dinner rush in their life. Everyone would just be so much nicer to each other in the world.
I agree. We see Morgan freaking out, which I love. And then, and I also love how Isabel just sits there and is like totally unfazed by this. Like, they're just, as you said, like, there's the drama, which is me. And then there's like the people who are just like, here's the drama.
They're like, okay.
Thing.
So like, you really just have to let someone vent it out. Like, that's what side stations and like kitchens, like dish pits and stuff were built for. Because it's literally that movie Waiting, where like that one girl is like super sweet to her tables and then goes into the kitchen as an Uber bitch and just like rants about people. That is accurate. Like, there's at least one person in any restaurant you work at that is that person. Not everyone is like that, but there's at least one person like that who just like goes in the kitchen, rants and raves. Everyone else is like, because they know that they just have to get it out, and then you all just go back to your business.
And that's, what can I say? I like to bring the drama. I'm the youngest of 5. I needed attention.
She had to get it somewhere, y'all.
I did. I really did.
Get it somewhere.
But so this is happening, and Colby ends up leaving, and it says, over the years, I had perfected removing myself from situations. It was kind of like automatic pilot. I just shut down and retreated, my brain clicking off before anything that hurt could sink in.
Well, she leaves because Isabel is an absolute bitch to her. She makes fun of her lip ring and literally calls it repulsive, and then makes fun of her hair dye job, and also like insinuates that she knows about like her mom, because she's like, and next time you decide to dye your hair, Isabel went on, ignoring her, you should try to get all of it one color. I'm sure your mom can afford to send you to a professional. And so Morgan, who has now decided that she is not quitting, is all like, Isabel, and she's trying to like kind of calm her down and make Colby okay. And Colby just like straight up gets the hell out of Dodge and shuts down, because I would too if someone who I'd never met before was just an absolute BS to me for literally no reason.
Yeah, that was a lot. I was like, wow, Isabel. There's the Morgans and then there's the Isabels, and at least I'm not an Isabel.
Breach. Then we get back home, and of course down, because she just had this experience, which again, this is like her mom, like her inner like mother's voice getting out. Now she like doesn't even want to eat because she was all excited. Like she's away from her mom. She hasn't had onion rings and a burger and fries. Like sounded so good. And then she just basically was shat on for no reason. And so now she's like, I'm not really hungry. I think I'm really tired. I'll just turn in. And Mira's kind of trying to fight it for a minute. But then she's like, oh, you know, you had a long day. I'm sure you are exhausted, you know, go turn in. So she goes into her bedroom, her bedroom that she's staying at her aunt's house, and who shows up, but basically Isabel and Morgan to kind of, Morgan wants Isabel to make amends. So her aunt comes in and she's like, you have company. And so of course Colby's like, I don't even know. Like I have been in this town for a day. So she's like, company? She's like, yeah, downstairs. So she goes out into the front porch and Isabel gives the most like half-assed apology ever that Morgan essentially has to like coax her through. But I will give her, again, I'm going to give Morgan most of the credit for being like, hey, you should go apologize. But I will give Isabel some credit for actually going through with it and saying that she's sorry. Oh, and this is where we learn also about Morgan's fiance, Mark, which we have not met Mark yet in this novel. I'm just not getting good vibes. Like the way Morgan is obsessed with him and is my fiance, this and that, and the way she talks about him, I don't see this ending well. Again, it's been a really long time since I read this, so maybe I'm wrong and everything turns out okay. But Sarah Dustin is a goddess, and the way she is like foreshadowing this, I don't think it's ending well.
I was thinking the same thing because I don't remember what happens with Mark either, but I'm guessing that it's gonna be bad because at one point in like maybe the next chapter, the chapter after, Colby says that she like picks up shifts for Morgan sometimes so Morgan can wait for Mark's call, and it's like,
ugh.
Yikes.
That's a bit of a red flag for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on chapter 2, ma'am, before we jump into chapter 3?
Oh, I did have a question. So do Morgan and Isabel live in a little house on Mira's property?
Oh, yeah, because she kind of says, I'm a little uncertain. I think that they must live close. 2 reasons I'm thinking this is in this chapter when she's like, and then they like head right down the road. And then in a couple of chapters, when she picks her up, they have to be at work at 9:30 and she picks her up at 9:15. So it seems like they're very close. But yeah, is it like on the actual same property, or is it just like, oh, they live down the road kind of situation, you know? Because also Morgan says that she'll be over for the triple threat. Like, oh, tell Mira I'll see her for the triple threat or whatever. So yeah, what exactly?
It says, I'm going home. Isabel told her duty done. She was lighter on her feet now, practically bounding down the steps and across the yard to the little white house I'd seen earlier.
Yeah. So is it like on the property? I'm uncertain.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's definitely very close. So I'm going to say either it's on the property or it's right down the road. I'm not sure. But it's a little white house and she saw it earlier.
It sounds so delightful. Those two living together. So nice.
Really, I like that they're friends, even though they're very different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I enjoy what I've seen so far of their bonds. I enjoy it.
All right, so chapter 3.
Chapter 3. We get to see a little bit more about the little notes that Mira leaves all around. My friend Katie, so this is not the first time I've mentioned her on this podcast, but dear friend Katie, growing up, to this day, her mother does this, but obviously I'm not in her mother's house as often as I was growing up. She left herself little notes all over the place, and there would just be those like yellow legal paper, like, you know, notepads all over the house. And it was just like by the TV, it'd be like, record Grey's Anatomy tonight. And I want to be like, you could just like set that up on your, you know what? She likes leaving a note. Like on the cabinet, it would be like, get dishes out of dishwasher, like whatever. It was just all these little like notes she would leave like on the floor in the living room. And you would just like walk in and you'd learn to like walk around them because you didn't want to disrupt them because like that was her system. So reading this, I instantly just like think of Katie's mom and like all the little notes that he used to always leave.
That's so funny. I love that.
Lori, if you're listening, bless you. You're a nice lady.
You're a nice lady.
And I love your little notes. So yeah, we get to see some more of the little notes. And then this is where we learn, which I think is interesting because Mira gives off these eccentric artist vibes or whatever. So we get full confirmation. She actually used to live in Chicago. And this is where we learn a little bit about like Mira and Kiki's history and how, you know, they're kind of estranged from each other. And then this is what I find very interesting. Mira had been my grandparents' favorite, art school educated, full of promise, the good daughter. When is the art student usually the good daughter? Like, that's fascinating to me. Like, in what world? I was like, fascinating. My mother, on the other hand, with her wild clothes and lifestyle, had fallen entirely out of favor when she'd gotten pregnant at 20, which is when we learned that, dropped out of college and had me. So we learned a little bit about the family history. There's a Walkman shout out, woohoo, 1999. And yeah, so I just enjoyed, and then love this line. Do you want to see my new death card? Mira. Fantastic.
Mira.
Literally aspire to be you, Mira. Literally aspire to be you.
I want to be you. I will be you. I will be you.
So yeah, this is where we learn that she basically does, what do they call it? Mira's Miracles. She has like a whole card line. And right now she's really into condolence cards, and she's talking about how there's like this whole untapped market. Your postman, like you could send a card to your postman's widow. I love that because she's like, do you give this to your mailman? I said, to your mailman's widow. She corrected me. I love that. That's fantastic. And where we also learn that she was the one who made, it's like a name of like a
Nani cards.
Yeah. And so she's talking about that. And I was like, I think it's really interesting. So this is something that Colby has like a memory of and she really liked. And she never knew that her aunt was the one who did that, like drew that little character. Because there was like dolls. And she was at, one of her many gas station trips with her mother and saw it and wanted it. Her mom was like, we don't have the money for that. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Like, again, I understand that they were estranged. But they're that estranged that she wouldn't like know that her aunt had made that? Wild. I also like this line, which again, I think is just like why Mira is such an absolute legend. She's talking about, they're talking about the different condolence cards, how you can send them to your mailman's widow and stuff. And so Coley's asking, like, do you ever run out of ideas? And she says, not really, she said, her slippered feet blue and fuzzy, dangling above the floor. You'd be amazed how many ways there are to say you're sorry in the world. I haven't even begun to discover them all. And I was like, wow, like what a pure soul, like all the different ways to like, that's just so like empathetic and I don't know, kind of lovely in a weird way. And I was like, wow, that's like oddly beautiful. I know she's talking about writing condolence cards, but like what a great way to live your life to be like, there's so many different ways to say yourself, like that she's so open to apologizing when that's something that's obviously very difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I also, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I also wanted to mention that she says that you might not, but you're probably not a card person. Some people just need to give cards, and they're the ones that keep me in business. And I am thinking about that scene and how to deal where Michael was buying Scarlett a card.
I literally thought the same thing, and I laughed out loud when I read this page because I was like, apparently like Michael Sherwood and how to deal.
Yeah, literally.
Teenage boy. Apparently he's a card person, though. Oh, so good.
So funny.
I was like, yeah, he's the one. I really now in my, because the Sarah Destin universe is all connected. Does it have a name? Like, like the Kevin Smith universe is the Askewiverse. Like, we should come up with, if it doesn't have a name, we should coin a name for like the Sarah Destin universe. But yes, I like to think that Michael, the card he's picking out for Scarlett, was from good old Aunt Mira here in my mind, because they're all connected in this universe. Is it like the that. Lakeview verse? Because like sometimes they're in Lakeview, sometimes they're in Colby. I don't know.
We're gonna think on that.
We'll debut it here first, y'all. So stay tuned. Get excited.
Get excited. We're gonna be brainstorming that one. Oh yeah. So then we get Norman. He is
Norman.
he is I just read the line that says that's a lot of dead mailmen. Um so Norman is here. He went to I don't know where he went that he picked up all this stuff. Oh, yard sales. He went to yard sales to get some random delights for their art that they create.
I love that they're both yard sale people. Also, this is very Manic Pixie Dream Boy.
Mm-hmm. Also, we hear about Bay Williamson, who was lurking about looking for cut glass, which I was like,
I'm like, I have questions. I would like to elaborate, please, Norman.
and they're talking about like, did she have it with her? And it's gotten bigger. And Coley's like, what are you guys talking about? And they're like, Bay Williamson's baby. It's the biggest head you've ever seen.
I do love that. I love how like we're all like we're body positive and everyone is beautiful, but I did love them talking about this big baby because like listen, all babies are cute, but we've all seen those babies that just have like ginormous heads, and you know that they're gonna grow into it one day. But when they're a baby, you're like, it's just a head, like it's a little baby body and just a big old head.
Massive. One of my nephews had a really big head when he was a baby, and it was so cute, so freaking cute, but huge.
Yeah,
probably still the same size today. Just kidding, Hank. If you're listening, love you.
You have a perfectly sized head, Hank.
He's so sassy now. Oh my gosh. Anyway, not to go on another tangent.
A big-headed baby. Mira corrected me. Oh, you should see the cranium on this kid. It's mind-boggling. Like this whole conversation is honestly hysterical to me.
It is. I love it.
Again, this is another on this page here, another example of like Norman being an overall good dude. Like he's like, I'm going to the library. Anything you need return. And Mira's like, you're a saint. And he's like, that's not true. And I do like that he just like when he's running into town doing errands, like thinks about her. And again, I guess also you could say like she's doing him a favor by him living there. I don't know if he pays her rent or not. That's none of my business. But either way, if he does or not, I still think that I don't know. That's oddly very nice of him. Also, this is apropos of nothing. But this book is obviously like pretty old. I've owned it for a while. And it just like smells like, like a book. And it just makes me really happy. So sitting here, I've just been like sniffing my book.
That's the best smell.
It really is. So then basically because I guess basically Mira goes everywhere on her bike. So she's like, I really appreciate it because it's a long bike ride for the library and lots of potholes. So she's very appreciative of this. And then basically Colby agrees to go with Norman on this journey because Mira's like, you should like get out and explore the town. Like it's your first like full official day in Colby. You should get out there. So she goes. And this again is where one of those times you're like, okay, yep, he is her age, which had been established a little bit earlier. But still, that train scene, it's very hard to tell that he is her age. And then she's like, he was kind of cute if you liked that deadhead type. And it's like, again, when you describe him like that, it makes it sound like you're crushing on a 60-year-old. And I know that he is a teenager, but that's still disturbing. So then she grabs her Walkman. They're in the car together. He mentions, she tells him who she's listening to, and he's like, I've never heard of them, which is where he's like, pop it into the tape deck. And I'm like, 1999. And then he's like, you like this? And she's like, yes. And then, he yells out shit because he sees that basically 2 big tour buses are headed into the Last Chance Bar and Grill. And she thinks at first that he's like dissing her music. And then she's like, I realized that is not the issue. So he's on his day off and he's heading to the library and he's like, gotta take a detour to go help out his job because it looks like it's about to be absolutely just murdered. And this is where I'm like, cannot relate. And this is the thing that only happens in fiction because anyone else, again, working in this capitalistic hellscape that we all unfortunately have to live off, your manager texts you, because again, now in our Lord's year 2022, your manager's like text you and they're like, world's on fire, need help tonight. And you're like, yeah, not my problem.
Good luck.
Good luck with that. Good luck. And this guy, no one even called him in. He just saw that tour buses were pulling into his restaurant and was like, gotta go. And I'm like, only in fiction. Only in fiction does that happen. In real life, that would never.
So I worked primarily in large, fast-paced, very organized restaurants in the Orlando area. And then when I moved to Albany, we started working at this really tiny pub that had like 7 employees total, including the kitchen, including the managers. And I will say, I think this kind of thing would definitely happen. Andrew has called people to come into work when they're not scheduled because they got an unexpected rush. It's like small town, little hole in the walls that are like this.
So like your little mom and pops, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously with the big corporate places, it's like, nah, it's my day off.
Yeah, like you have 40 servers on today. I think you're good.
You'll be okay. Or you'll call some other, idiot who will say yes, who will agree. Yeah. You have like 8 names on your list. I'm one of them. You'll be okay without me.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, another weird thing, which I think this is only in fiction. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Some people might just pop into a place when it's busy and be like, hey, you need some help and get a job. But of course, Colby is with Norman when this is going down. And so she just like is standing there kind of dumbfounded at first because it is kind of crazy. And they're like, are you going to help? And she's like, oh, okay, I guess I'm doing that. And it's like, that really is strange.
No,
that, like,
that wouldn't happen, I don't think.
That is for sure something that only happens in fiction. But
although when I go to a busy restaurant and I'm a guest, I desperately want to help. I'm like, what can I do? What can I run food? What can I do?
If y'all need me, like I got some non-slip shoes in my trunk. I'm here to help y'all out if you need me. I also am that person. I cannot stand going out to eat with people who like don't understand that it's like a Saturday night and the restaurant is busy and they're like, what's taking my server so long? What's taking our food so long? And I'm like, well, if you look around, you can tell that your server has 8 tables right now, is super weeded. She's doing her best. And it's a Saturday night and this restaurant is big. Do you think it's magic? Do you think the food is magically going to appear on our table? Because it's like going to take a minute to cook. That's how food works.
Mm-hmm.
That's what separates us from the other primates of the world. We cook our food, okay? And to do that, it takes some time.
People are people, okay? It's not magic. It's not some nameless, faceless robot in there. Those are human beings. So
working real hard. The start of chapter 4, as I was like, if that ain't the damn truth. The first sentence is just, I never set out to be a waitress. Nobody does, Colby. Nobody does. It just happens. Just one day you're like, oh, I'm doing this. And then you're like, this isn't a bad gig. And then other times you're like, I want to quit mid-shift. But then you're like, the money's nice.
And then 7 years later, you're still doing it.
Yeah, and then you're still doing it, and you don't know how. So I was like, if that is not the most accurate thing, I never set out to be a waitress. And it's like, yep, nobody does. And then you're just doing it. So they were like, Morgan basically is telling Isabel, this chapter starts, so like, we do need some extra help. She could be useful. And before you know it, she is like, yep. And they're like, just minimum plus tips. That's it. It'll be fun. Colby, Morgan said, you should do it. Waitressing sucks. Isabel told me a lot of people can't handle it. True. And then Morgan, of course, quits once the shift is like, oh, it's not so awful.
Me.
Everyone in the service industry, it is the biggest love-hate relationship. But when all is said and done, at the end of this, page 46, congratulations, Morgan said, handing me a bottle of ketchup. Welcome to the last chance. And so her journey begins into serving. And oh my God, like I probably highlighted most of this chapter because there were just so many good things. And this is 100% one of those things where you can tell that Sarah Dessen 100% works in the service industry. She gets it. She's one of us. I bet Sarah Dessen tips well and is nice and good to her service staff. And thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you.
I bet she is.
She's wonderful in many other ways. She's wonderful as an author and probably just as a human being. This is a good Morganism. I like that she says, mayonnaise, Morgan said, is a lot like men. And then whole like spiel about it. And then this is where, again, like the more I read about Morgan, the more I love her. So Colby says, this was the way Morgan taught, not in instructions, but pronouncements. Everything was a lesson. I love Morgan's vibe. She's honestly fantastic.
I do too. I also just want to mention in the beginning of the chapter, Morgan was marrying ketchups. And for all of you non-service industry peeps, that means when you pour the contents of one ketchup bottle into another to make it a full bottle. And I just want to let everyone know that I'm pretty sure that's illegal now and also disgusting.
Yeah, it's a big health code violation. For many, when I first started serving, it was a thing. We married all of our condiments. And of course, me being the absolute lame human being that I am would be like, Mr. Mayo and Mr. Mayo, I now pronounce you husband and husband. And then like the next one, I was like, husband and wife and wife, whatever. Because I was all about equality. But everyone hated me because I did it like every time. And I was the only one who thought it was funny. But yeah, it's definitely a health code violation now. And you are no longer allowed to do it. But yeah, I'm certain in 1990. I want to say maybe only in the last like 5 or 6 years that became like a big no-no. It probably should have been a big no-no like way before that. But when I started serving at my first job, Applebee's, God. Yeah, we definitely married our condiments, and you would not be allowed to do that now. That is correct. We talk about, Morgan's just like kind of showing her the ropes, and she's teaching her like little things like, Morgan is like 100% a type A personality, and I respect that because she notices all the little things. Like Isabel is just kind of like, whatever, I mix the dressing like this. I put the to-go stuff on the shelves like this. And Morgan is like, take out boxes on the left, couplets on the right. And she just goes around the venue and kind of like points out all the little mistakes. This next paragraph here on page 50 is actually in the beginning of the book, and I do feel like it needs to be read because it's great. It's a little long, but here we go. For it. The first lunch, when Norman and I had stopped to pitch in, was a constant blur of people and noise and food. Everyone was screaming out at each other, Isabel and Morgan running past with orders, Norman flipping burgers and yelling things to Vic, the other cook, who stayed stonily quiet and cool the entire time. There's always one. I'm never that person. I shoveled ice like my life depended on it, answered the phone, and took orders, although I knew almost nothing about the menu, and messed up the register so badly it stuck on $10,000 and beeped for 15 minutes straight before Isabel, in a fit of rage, whacked it with a plastic water pitcher. It was us against them. Clearly, and for once, I was part of us. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the service industry in a nutshell.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's us against them.
Mm-hmm.
And as Colby, who is someone who has definitely not felt like she has been part of an us ever in her life, I could 100% seeing her loving, serving, being a waitress, and wanting, as she kind of mentions in this novel, she starts picking up doubles, and her mom talks to her and she's like, what are you doing? And you don't need to work, which of course she doesn't, because her mom is obviously doing pretty well for herself now. But it's like she likes it because there is just something about it that it's this weird bond that you like can't explain unless you've done it. Also, I highlighted that they serve hush puppies because that's important to me. So I love hush puppies.
Yeah. The best thing about working in the service industry is the community. Like, as I said, and we definitely saw this as well during the pandemic when every single restaurant was shut down and nobody could work for several months. Like the way that everybody came together during that time was just so beautiful. There's like so many organizations now that help unemployed or employed and struggling restaurant industry employees, and the restaurant organizing project by the DSA is doing a lot of really important work for workers' rights in the restaurant industry, and I love it.
We're here for it. Viva la revolution.
Mm-hmm. Yes, hush puppies. My man's loves hush puppies. I don't think I've ever had one in my life.
Oh, it's so good. So good. The origin behind hush puppies is problematic, as is most things in this country, but dang if they are delicious.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on page 51, I highlighted basically the entire freaking page.
Oh my God, yes. So much to get into here.
But she says, at first, just walking up to a table full of strangers had scared me to death and made me nervous to stand there so exposed, all of those people looking at me. But then on about my third table, I finally got the nerve to glance up and realize that basically they weren't. For the most part, they were flipping through the menu, extracting sweet and low packets from their toddler's grip, or so lost in their own conversation that I didn't even register. They didn't know or care about me. Facts.
Yeah. I like when she said 20 minutes later, they'd be flagging Isabel down. Sure, she was the one with their check. If that isn't the most accurate, like literally, you really are invisible to most of these people. And there are times that I'm flagged down to get someone something or a check, and they legitimately think I'm their server. And their server is someone of a different race, ethnicity, gender, and I'm like, how did you confuse me for that person? Because that is how people are. And if you ever want to feel as small as a piece of dirt on the ground, work in the service industry, because you really don't realize how many people don't think that you're a human being, and you're like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to leave the restaurant industry after the pandemic because when I came back, I was working at a restaurant in Disney Springs called Raglan Road. Shout out. Love it there. Love Raglan Road. I love my managers and most of them. And I just wish nothing but the best for them. But I was getting so frustrated because it was like, okay, this is a global pandemic. I'm unvaccinated. I'm serving you in Disney World and you guys are screaming at me and not tipping me and complaining about mask mandates when I've been wearing a freaking 4-layer mask in 90-degree weather, working in double on the patio. So
yeah.
And I ended up having to leave because I could not emotionally do it anymore. I was like, I'm going to. That was my real breaking point. I had a lot of fake breaking points, but that was my real one where I was like, I don't think I should do this anymore.
There was really nothing like having to wear a mask for a 12-hour shift, which honestly, like at a certain point, you really did get used to it. Yeah. Like I really kind of didn't mind it anymore. But yeah, you're wearing it out in the heat, working a patio shift or something at your job and having people yell at you about it when they're sitting there without one, because the rule was if they were, actively eating or drinking, they're allowed to take one off. So everyone you're talking to is not currently wearing a mask, doesn't have to wear a mask for basically that hour that they're at their table. And they were like yelling at you and you're like, yeah, tell me about your problems, man. Like,
literally.
I'm like, yeah, I'm currently wearing one and will continue to wear one for your safety and my own. But like, I'm glad you're struggling here.
Like it was just the ungratefulness of, because we had such this like camaraderie when we were all unemployed. I was unemployed personally for 6 months during that time. And so we had this like camaraderie and we were all like banding together as like service industry professionals. And I thought when we go back to work, people are going to be grateful for us that we're here, that we're open, that we're serving them. And it was the complete opposite. I've never had so many guests be so unbelievably ungrateful and rude. And it was truly like mind-blowing, like the attitudes. But I mean, right after when the pandemic's still happening, there's still lockdowns. Yeah. You're getting a specific kind of person at Disney World during those times. So that doesn't help either.
Yeah, it's it was so strange. I feel like there was like a set of people that were just really happy to be like out and about and were really appreciative of you and like hadn't dined in a restaurant in months. And you would get some of those, particularly like when we first reopened, I felt like they came out. And then all of a sudden it turned into like the rudest people you've ever met in your life.
Yeah. And it was unbelievable, really. And it got me so frustrated that I was like, me and Andrew both were like, we can't do this. Of course, we both did end up serving again in Albany, but at like a mom and pop place that was like, the standards there are just completely different. The vibes are completely different when you're not in a corporate Disney restaurant.
Going back to this entire page that both of us highlighted because I love this paragraph a little bit further down than the one we were just reading, which is another great like Morganism. In this job, Morgan told me after a dinner rush, you get a lifetime experience every day. A crisis will crop up, worsen, come to a head, and resolve itself all in 15 to 30 minutes. You don't even have time to panic. You just push through. And it's like, yeah, it is honestly crazy how many like metaphorical fires you put out in a shift. And time is like such a weird concept in service because it's like something seems really crazy, but then like 15 minutes later, you're like, oh, I'm good. Like the amount of times myself or people I've worked with have been like, I'm in the weeds. I've got this table. I've got to recook. I've got this. I've got that. And then like literally you see them 10 minutes later and they're like, zippity doo da. And you're like, oh, they're good now. Because like you have to get through that like 10 minutes. Like when it rains, it pours. Like you have one table that like their food didn't come out right. Another table has split checks. Another table has this. And you think I'm never getting out of this. And then 10 minutes later, everything's fine.
Everything's fine. Yeah. And like your team comes together, people get shit done. Like it's, I miss the rush.
It really is a lifetime experience every day is the most. And again, so that's gonna be like the longest episode, whatever. I'm going to edit some of this out, but Michael Ann, obviously you can speak to this more yourself than I can, but I remember you saying when you were applying for your current position, the people were telling you not to put your service industry stuff on your resume, and you decided against that. And I think that is so true because I legitimately don't think that people realize that every day we operate a small business. Every day. And you get so many curveballs. All these people in corporate America always talking about, do you handle pressure? Hi, I work at a high volume restaurant and I've worked 7 Christmas seasons at it. Yeah, I think I understand pressure.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I remember. Yeah. So I did a coding boot camp, as a lot of people did during the pandemic. And they gave me like a career coach who I ended up just like ghosting because her advice to me was to take my service industry experience off of my resume. And first of all, without my service industry experience, I don't have anything. So I don't understand what that was. But yeah, she was being like very elitist. And I was like, and then the position that I currently have right now, I actually got because of my service industry experience. That's why they hired me. That's why I've been working there for over a year, or not over a year, almost a year. So it was kind of, it's like people don't understand how talented servers are, especially high volume, especially, when you're working those holiday seasons in a theme park. Like, I can't even describe to you guys, like we probably did at Raglan during the holidays. If I worked a double, I was doing over $3,000 in sales by myself. And just like the standard is probably like, I don't know. What do you think? Like a standard night is like $1,000 in sales.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty fair.
So it was like
anywhere from like 1,000 to 1,500, give or take, depending obviously on how busy the night is. Yeah, average would be somewhere around like 1,000.
And when you're in the holiday season, you're getting up to like 3,500. Like that's a lot. You don't understand like how much you're doing and how much you have to manage. People just don't appreciate it, and they definitely should.
Yeah, and I definitely, there is this elitist culture around people in the service industry, and I've met people from so many different backgrounds and so many different, like, I think a lot of people just think that, I don't know, I guess we're like uneducated buffoons or something, that like anyone could do it. And I'm like, most people I work with are college educated or very smart, had maybe a different career, decided they didn't like the hours or the pay and decided to switch to this. Like that happens literally all the time. And I don't think people see it that way. And they really should. Again, not like I'm saying that college degree means that everything, but yeah, I think a lot of people are like, you little snot face, whatever. And it's like, no, like people can make a career out of this. Like it's people.
Yeah. It's a very real job. Like there's a bartender at Raglan specifically that I think about all the time. He is like the best service industry employee I've literally ever met in my entire life. Like he is killer at that job. And it's like, to think that somebody could even begin to think negative thoughts about him because this is what he's been doing for his whole life is so mind-blowing to me, because like the talent that in the skill set that comes out from working in a restaurant like this it's incomparable to anything else, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, moving on. Yeah, so her mom is like, "Why are you working?" And she's like, "I like it." And then I also want to mention on page 52, at the end of her shift, she's like, but that night I made $50.
I know.
All mine. And
I was like, oh.
Yikes, that's like 2 tables.
I know. And I was like, I guess for like a little mom and pop restaurant in Colby, North Carolina in 1999, that's good. But when I read that, I go, ooh, yikes.
Yeah, big yikes. If I was
I'm like, oh, she's excited about that. That's cute.
Like I got to a point where I was like, if I'm making less than $200, it's not even worth my time. And she's
like,
like,
dare I have wasted gas to get here? And she's like, $50, mine, all mine. And we're like, oh, sweet summer. Again, she's 15, so like, what bills does she have? But like, oh, girl, $50. She's happy with that. All right,
you go, girl.
You go, girl. We're proud of you.
So then it's the end of this shift, and this is like one of those moments that you just love in the restaurant industry. They close up, basically, they finish up, and then they go out onto the roof and they hang out and watch a baseball game and talk about Morgan's fiance, Mark, who we find out is a semi-professional baseball player.
Yeah.
I think.
I assume he's like in the minor league or something, give or take.
She talks about how they met, which is Isabel spilled coffee on him and then didn't keep moving. It didn't like do anything to like apologize, which is so funny to me. Like, what?
Everything I know about, I almost said Miserable. She was a little miserable. Everything I know about Isabel so far, I'm like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah.
That sounds like something she would do. But I was like, geez, I can't imagine being so busy that you wouldn't apologize that you spilled coffee on someone.
Yeah, exactly. Or like clean it up or do anything. So Morgan saves the day and he starts flirting with her, and then that's kind of their meet cute. But one thing I wanted to ask is, do we know how old Morgan is?
No, I haven't gathered. They haven't specifically said yet, and I have not gathered how old she is yet. So I hope at some point soon that will be answered. But yeah, I'm not positive how old her or Isabel are.
I wonder, because she was like at page 54, she's like, "Oh, you'll find someone. You're just a baby still." I'm like, how old is she? I wonder.
Yeah, Lord knows Ashley was married at 21. So in the Dustin verse, who's to say? I like here on 55, which kind of goes to what we were saying a minute ago about how like people kind of look down at us sometimes, but she says, the important thing to remember, Morgan always said, is that you're a human being and worthy of respect. Sometimes customers will make you doubt that. Whew, girl, yeah, I feel that.
100%.
I feel that.
Yep, and you'll always have that fucking guy. Oh my god, really quick, I know we're at 2 hours here, but let me tell you my craziest serving story. Okay, or should I'll save this. I'll save it for the next episode. I'll save it.
All right, please remember, because now I will really never forget to hear it. I'll never forget this story.
Never forget this.
We'll get into some more serving rants, I'm sure, in the next few episodes.
Yeah, that's a beautiful line.
Morgan gets some more mantras about like good attitude, good money, shit attitude, shit money. Morgan, she's full of so much advice.
Listen, I had a shit attitude and I made good money, so I don't know what you were talking about, Morgan.
You're like, no, Morgan, it ain't true. You're like, I can tell you, I'm the poster child for why it's not true.
Yeah, then we kind of see, I saw Morgan quit 3 times in my first 2 weeks, which, yep, relatable. Yep, and then we see, this is when some days I pulled double shifts working for Morgan so she could wait for Mark to call. Gross.
I'm like, ugh, what's up with that, girlfriend? And then we get to Mira back at the house, who is watching her sister, aka Coley's mother, doing her like acrobatics, whatever, on the TV. And this is honestly kind of like a bittersweet moment here. she's saying, like, it's just amazing what she's done. I never doubted your mother could get thin or conquer the world for that matter, which, like, don't love the whole whatever. But I like her being like, oh, I never doubted that she could conquer the world. And, she's like, I'm just so, like, she was just so sure of herself. You can tell that, like, Mira might not entirely understand the whole Kiki Sparks aerobics thing, but she is, like, really proud of her sister for, like, what she has, like, accomplished. And then the very end of this chapter, I kind of love this whole part where she's like, Mira's watching, leaning in close. I just love this program. The weight stuff, she paused, shaking her head. That's not important to me. We've always been different that way, but I just love to see what she can do. It's infectious, That's why I always watch. And that's just, like, kind of, like, heartbreaking and beautiful. And again, I just love that, like, Mira is, like, so okay with who she is. And she's so proud of her sister, and she's not watching because she's like, I want to lose weight, and I'm proud of my sister for losing weight. It's more like, that's my sister, and I'm proud of what she's doing, and I'm always going to watch her and be proud of her, even though obviously that relationship seems to have, be kind of on the rocks and be soured. But I just love that Mira is like, the weight stuff doesn't matter to me. Like, I'm who I am, and that's fine. I'm like, yes, Mira.
Yeah.
Love that for you, Mira.
I also think this is like, because then Colby sits down with her too to watch her mom. And I feel like it's just a couple people, two people who love this woman and miss this woman. And they're like, all I can get is her on TV, which is also very sad. It's like fame and wealth is not everything.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. I think that they just both of them miss Catherine. Yeah. And all they get now is Kiki Sparks. And that is very heartbreaking because it seems like Catherine was a really awesome person. And I'm sure she's still in there deep down. And hopefully she can emerge again.
Yeah.
That takes us to the end of chapter 4, which is where we will be ending this episode. I'm going to warn all of you, Keeping the Moon episodes are probably going to be a little bit longer than average. I can't stress enough, we have a lot of feelings on body image and body positivity, and a lot of feelings about the service industry, obviously, as people that have worked in it for years. So please join us next week as we dive into some more of this wonderful novel. And we're leaving y'all with a tease. We're going to get to hear Michael Ann's, like, crazy service. Story, so please get excited about that. I'm really excited about that. So just a little bit of admin for y'all. We will be doing Keeping the Moon over the next 3 weeks. That is our goal. So again, they might be a little bit longer of episodes. Who's going to complain about that? I hope none of you complain about that.
Hopefully no one.
Yeah, hopefully no one. I think we've got some good juicy content coming out of this one. So the next 3 weeks, we'll be getting through that. We will be taking 2 weeks off at the end of December to enjoy the holiday season with friends and family, and work does get a little hectic for me during that time of year because service industry in Orlando, but times. So come along and join us, help us keep the moon. We'll be back next week to read some more. And then starting in the new year, we'll be back to depress everyone with Dreamland. So get excited. Nothing says happy new year like toxic relationships. So
woohoo! Can't wait
for more service industry rants next week on Hate Spinnerbait. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Bye, y'all.